Well, of course he said it reluctantly. He was embarrassed, the poor guy. You just caught him rubbing one out. Earth, our home planet, is a world unlike any other. The third planet from the sun. Earth is the only place in the universe confirmed to host intelligent life. Okay, intelligent life and flat earthers.
Go nuts on my nuts.
Hi, welcome to another episode of Playing a Blinder with me, the Creaky Blinder. Now why do some people claim to think the Earth is flat? Well, I think I may have found a way to shed a little light on that. So let's take a look. Tidy!
A few months ago, while I was in prayer, I believe that the Lord told me to publicly share a testimony that I had been holding on to.
The Lord?
A testimony that I believe might make some laugh. Might anger some. Some may ridicule.
You're a flat earther.
But most importantly, I believe that some will be blessed. Even if just a few people are blessed, strengthened in their faith, or come to saving faith in Jesus, then it'll be worth sharing.
Well, I completely agree. I'm all for flat earthers sharing what they believe. Because if they didn't, I wouldn't have anything to make videos about, would I? But so far, all I've picked up from your speech is blah 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 blessed, blah 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 jeebas. So is that why you think the Earth is flat? Because God.
One favor that I ask of you, though, is to listen to my testimony with an open mind, putting down any strongholds against what I might have to say, and listen until the very end.
Well, I can't make any promises, but let me ask you a question. Do you promise to return the favor if you happen across this review of your own video?
One day, back in 2017, my husband Mark was on the computer, and when I walked in, I said, "What you doing?" And he responded with,
"Get out! I'm doing very important research."
And then I said, "Okay, well now you have to tell me," right? With a laugh. He had been watching a string of YouTube videos, and finally, he said to me, reluctantly,
I think the Earth is flat.
Well, of course he said it reluctantly. He was embarrassed, the poor guy. You just caught him rubbing one out. And for some unknown reason, which completely escapes this guy, he found the prospect of saying he was a flat earther less embarrassing than the prospect of admitting to his wife that she just caught him watching porn.
I didn't know how it all worked.
Yeah, well, that's completely understandable because it doesn't.
But at that moment, the world seemed to all make sense.
And there we go. All people that claim to believe in flat earth, because I'm still not entirely convinced that anybody actually does, claim to do so because they have such a poor understanding of physics and how the world actually works. They are just spouting out their own interpretation of it, which is basically something that they can understand. And they just seem to completely overlook the fact that it's all completely ridiculous and makes them look like absolute morons.
You can imagine that Mark was pretty puzzled by my response, but he was delighted that I didn't react how he was expecting me to. And he asked me, "What do you mean you knew it?" I told him that I had been wondering this for years, that if we are the apple of God's eye and we are made in his image, then why weren't we the center of his creation?
Well, because the world isn't God's creation. And just as a quick side note here, while we're on the subject of us allegedly being made in God's image, is God white? Native American? African American? Is he a Pacific Islander? Because he would need to be one of those races, surely, for us to be made in his image. But that then begs the question, where did the rest of us come from?
So why does this matter? And what does this do for me and my family?
Make you look like gullible idiots?
Why?
Well, you just said it yourself. You believe that the Earth is flat.
Because there are many verses in the Bible that you just can't get around when you have a heliocentric worldview.
And by that, do you mean that there are many verses in the Bible that contradict what we can see to be reality in the world around us? Because that's what it sounds like to me. You've just got to ask yourself one question. What's more likely to be factually accurate? Things that we can observe demonstrate and repeat, or a dusty old book written thousands of years ago?
Genesis 1, 6 through 7 says, "And God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. And God made the firmament, and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament, and it was so." So what is the firmament?
Well, that's a really easy question to answer. The firmament is something made up in the imagination of people who claim to believe the earth is flat to allow them to have a reason that we don't get sucked off into space. Sucked off. And as you just read from Genesis verse, whatever it was, 6 was it? Then God said, how can somebody who is not able to be proven to exist say anything? So us normies, us globetards, don't need to worry about the firmament because we know what's really there.
And how is every eye going to see Jesus at his second coming if we live in a ball?
Flat earthers wonder why people make fun of them and call them stupid. So let's assume for a second then, just for the fun of it, that the earth is flat. So we live on a flat plane and Jesus is going to make his second appearance. How big is the flat earth and how far do you think you'd be able to see on a flat earth? That everybody living on earth would be able to see him if only the earth was flat. Can't you hear how stupid that sounds?
These are only a minute amount of the scriptures that leave you confused at the Bible. When you don't know our true cosmology. And this confusion made me feel like I couldn't read the Bible and understand it for myself.
And that's completely fine. There is nothing wrong with not understanding something. But the answer isn't to suddenly one day decide that the earth is flat because you find that easier to understand based on the guidance Christians claim that the Bible gives them on the subject.
It also made me question what I could understand as literal in Scripture. This confusion has led many to think that maybe the Bible is just fairy tales.
No way. Fairy tales? Surely not. Because Moses parting the Red Sea sounds completely plausible to me, and Jesus turning water into wine? I don't think even David Blaine can manage that trick.
My faith during those years was only at my own convenience. I still struggled with sin, since I knew nothing of deliverance or the fear of the Lord.
I've said it before and I will say it again. He who rules through fear rules no man. Now I'm not sure if I made that up or if I read it somewhere, but it doesn't matter anyway. Surely it would be far better for people to respect somebody rather than fear them, because fear gets you nowhere, apart from making people fearful of you. But that's not really a good way to lead.
After this flat earth revelation we had in 2017, we spent months and months researching this topic, watching YouTube videos.
How many times have I got to say YouTube is not the most reliable place to research anything?
Reading articles, reading books, and scouring the scriptures to see if these things be true.
And neither is the Bible. Did you not think maybe you should be reading some scientific journals, looking at peer-reviewed research, you know, things that can actually prove things to us?
Was there physical evidence of the ends of the earth? Was there evidence for the glass dome that's above our heads? Was there proof of God's throne sitting atop it?
Well, on this occasion, I'm just going to have to jump straight in with no, and definitely not.
And yes, we studied the science.
Ah, very intelligent of you. And are you going to actually give us any of those scientific sources? Or do we just have to take what you say at face value?
What happens to the ships that allegedly go over the curve? Why is moonlight colder than sunlight if the moon is supposedly just reflecting the sun's light? Flight paths, Coriolis effect, refraction, perspective, mirages, NASA failures, their CGI photos,
CGI,
the horribly fake moon landing footage, and NASA's satanic roots.
Well, it would seem I was wrong. You clearly have been doing your research. YouTube research? but in you a tiny little flat earth mind, research nonetheless. Because everything you said proves two things. The first thing it proves is that you are falling for all the flat earth nonsense that is already available online because it fits in with your own beliefs and narrative. And the second point, ships disappearing over the horizon, the Coriolis effect, all these things demonstrate that we live on a globe, but flat earthers are too stupid to understand it all. Which, as I said earlier on, is the exact reason they make things up to suit their own level of intelligence and belief and call it flat earth.
Alright, what's this next? But before you do, make sure you subscribe by order of the Creaky Blinder.